What's your most embarrassing dad's pee moment? Not my dad, but awkward. My friend in high school was one of 5 kids and they lived in a big old farmhouse. He and his brother, a year younger than us, were the only boys, so they got the 2 bedrooms up on the 3rd floor. When we were juniors in HS, they 2 of them decided to share a bedroom so they could have a lounge in the other room, i.e. makeout room, drinking room. One day while cleaning, their mom found a pee tape in the lounge. She approached the little brother, who did what every single one of us would have done, and blamed his older brother and his friends. To his credit, he apparently spent the rest of the night trying to find us and give us a heads up, but this was the mid-90s, so before cell phones were everywhere. My buddy and I got back to his place around 12:30 or something. I basically lived there in high school, and his dad was still awake. This wasn't all the unusual. He was often sitting and drinking and reading till late at night. This time, though, he was sitting by the back door, just looking at it, obviously waiting. Hello boys. Do you like movies? We had no idea where this was going, but it obviously wasn't good. We tried to demur and just go to bed, but he made us sit on either end of the couch, with him in the middle. He grabbed the remote and fired up the VCR. After about 45 seconds it was obvious what was happening, and we both tried to bolt. He locked onto our knees. He is a coroner, and I'm not sure if it's a coroner thing or just him, but he had the strongest hands of anyone I've ever met. Every time we got in trouble ended with him shaking our hand and slowly crushing it until we apologized and confessed to everything just to get our hand back. This time it was our knees. We sat there, with his hands on one of knees each, and watched about 90 minutes of pee, silently. That was a nice movie. Huh boys afterwards. All kinds of awkward, and all kinds of bruising on my knee. Oh, I actually have a story for once. Familiar scene, high school summer evening. Group of 5 or 6 of us teenage boys were wandering the town borders frick and looking for crap to do or otherwise mess with. Frick, where can we get some booze? Guys derp. Hey, my dad's got tons of beer at my place, but I gotta see if he's awake so I can sneak in and out. Alright, so we get to Derp's house and all the lights are out. Looks good. Wait, there's a dim light from the side window. No, prob. Let's check it out. We stealthily creep down Derp's driveway, crouching under the windowsills. Then we get to the window. Blinds drawn. Wait, there's a small crack at the bottom. The light is obviously the blue flicker of the TV. Peer in through the slit. It's dark, but there appears to be something. Yes. Wait, what's that on the TV? Boobies? Oh, crap. Eyes immediately flick to the couch where Mr. Derp is spread-eagled, pants around ankles, tugging at his half-masted bratwurst. Ouch. I'll never forget the look of shame on Derp's downcast face as we hightailed it out of there. This didn't happen to me, it happened to my dad. Back in the mid-70s, when I was but a young-un, we lived in a large block of apartments. On the 7th floor, this block faced a couple of other similar apartment blocks. One night when my mum was out and the kids were in bed, my dad and a couple of buddies decided they were going to watch a Dutch movie they had acquired. Now, this was back in the days before VCRs and DVDs. So, they set up the projector. Not having a wall large enough to project the movie onto, they hung a large white bedsheet in front of the balcony windows. Then, they grabbed a few cold beers and sat down to watch. An hour or so later, when the movie was finishing, they heard a light smattering of applause. They took down the sheet to reveal a significant number of people on the balconies of the other apartment blocks applauding their nighttime show. TLDR. Dad inadvertently projected porno onto a makeshift screen for the entire neighborhood. Your dad is a hero. I have 2 stories to share, both involving my son. I came home early from work one day. As I climbed the 3 steps to the front porch I heard the sound of someone running through the house and a door slamming. I opened the door to find a DVD from the first season of The L Word playing on the DVD player. My 13-year-old son had decided to have himself some happy time, and as soon as his happy time came to an end he heard me on the stairs. So he ran, pants around his ankles and jizz in hand, to the bathroom, and the other. He was maybe 12 and asked me to look at the computer because he couldn't print a school paper. I go to the computer room and see a print job hung in the print queue. I looked at the job and it's a screen print from the Victoria's Secret's website. I asked him if he had been looking at the website and he said no, so I assumed my wife was maybe shopping for a present for herself. I deleted the job and my son said that it was me. I looked at him and he said I was, and he makes the jerking off motion with his hand. I could tell he was absolutely mortified, so I said I understand. I'm not mad. Just please don't beat off when you're on the computer, because knowing you're doing that is gonna make me feel real weird when I'm beating off on the computer. Well played, Dad, well played. My dad kept his pee on the top shelf in his closet. Every time they would leave the house I would have to get a chair or a stool or frick a laundry basket. Anything to stand on to reach that pee. One time they hadn't left me alone for weeks. My dad had just come home from work and was helping my mom cook. I sensed an opportunity. I ran upstairs, quickly decided there was no time for the chair or stool. I was going to have to jump for it. First jump, not enough height. Second jump, just a bit more. Third jump, my angle was just enough off that I accidentally grabbed the shelf itself. In one terrifying moment the entire shelf ripped itself from the wall. 6 or 7 penthouses and Playboys came tumbling down, and the hole in the wall was enormous. I sat there too shocked to do anything. I quietly left the scene. My father said nothing to me of this, ever. It wasn't until recently I realized he must have been just as embarrassed as me. I was terrified for months over this one though. My mom and dad have been married many years. When I was in my teens I would climb on my roof to smoke cigarettes. From there I could see into the living room, where one night my father was watching gay pee. I have seen gay pee stuff in his browser history from time to time. He continues to watch gay pee to this day. My sister is aware of it too. We generally don't talk about it. Also, my dad used a work laptop to look at gay pee. He is a public, important figure in his field. When the laptop crashed, IT got a hold of it and gave it to the police full of gay pee. My father had me take the fall for it. I went into the police station and was accused of all sorts of things. Child pee among them. Nothing came of it. I was just the pervy son's scapegoat. My friend's dad was setting up for a family night watching a slideshow of the big once in a lifetime family 4-week holiday to the US. I'm English. During setup, in front of the family, pee starts flashing up on the projector. The dad panics, starts cycling through more and more. Mom's going crazy, daughter's crying. My friend tries to settle the mood by saying it's a work laptop, sometimes other people leave their stuff on it by mistake. Alt plus F4, back to desktop. Dad tries again and succeeds. My mate and his dad give each other knowing looks and carry on with the evening. Wish I'd been there. That is awesome. When I played this out in my head, your friend's dad was Chevy Chase for some reason. Dad, on Amber N, with his nose touching the pee-filled screen. I asked him what the frick he was doing and he says, "Who the frick are you?" Maybe not all that embarrassing but funny as heck. Mine was when my dad tried to give me a bunch of his old adult manga comics a few years ago. Not to mention there was a bunch of Playboy stuff in his room too he didn't seem to want to part with. Of course now later that he's moved to another state, he gave me a bunch of random stuff in the box. Those comics were in there. I'm his daughter by the way. Try having your mom's new boyfriend tell you that you can have her new vibrator since she doesn't like it. Found my dad's pee stash. Ate his British pee for the win. In a cabinet in his room. Stole the lot and for many a month I was the happiest 15-year-old in Scotland. Then one day my dad decides to make me clean my room. He attempts to help out by lifting the mattress from my bed, only to expose the whole stash. Poker face. This is all pre-internet and pre-DVD. When my parents were out of the house I'd always check the drawers in their bedroom for VHS. My dad rented them pretty regularly. One day I found what looked like a blank VHS tape in the same spot. I assumed my dad had copied some pee onto it via VHS to VHS or something. What a great idea, Dad. So I get everything set up, pop the tape in the VCR, raging hard on in my hand. And what comes up on the TV? Yeah, it was my parents going at it. Apparently they have a camcorder I didn't know about. They must have watched their video at some point and stopped the tape somewhere in the middle of the action, so when I started it I immediately saw my dad plowing my mom. No warning. No chance to turn it off before it got weird. It was instant dad dong and mom puss on the TV. So of course I finished. Like a boss. Not really. I died a little inside that day and found it very difficult to look either of my parents in the eye for a while. I walked into my parents' bedroom when I was a little. They were still in bed, so I probably wanted to go in there to annoy them. Or whatever kids do. I don't remember. The only thing I remember, all too clearly, is that I walked through the door and picked up this bizarre red object that was foreign to my young and innocent eyes. I questioned my dad about it, and he insisted that it was just a toy for the dog. He then hid it behind his pillow. Years later, it finally dawned on me that I walked into my parents' bedroom and picked up my mother's dildo and pretty much shoved it in my dad's face. Well. Once I came home unexpected and my dad ran out and was very relieved to see me. He thought I was my mom. So he brings me into the computer room and tells me to make the pee go away because the computer froze up from so much pee. That's not that bad, but when I started Xing out of all the stuff it was all kinds of really dirty hardcore crap. Midgets, rape fantasies, ones where the girls act dead. I didn't say anything, just got rid of it. Throw away because the shame still haunts me. I am 18 years old. 2 years ago I was frantically searching through dad's stash of pictures and magazines in a shoebox when I heard him come through the door. He must have known something was up, as 15 minutes later he walks in my room with a look which I can only describe as contained jubilation. Dad, you went through my crap, huh? Me. Yeah. Dad, you took some pictures from me. I need one of them back. You can have the rest. Me. I am sorry. Hand stack of pictures to dad. Dad, go through pictures. Takes 1 hour, hands rest back. Don't be. Just ask instead of going through my crap. I had so much pee when I was your age. Me. Why did you need that picture back? Dad, as he walks out the door, it is a picture of your mother. He really saved your butt there at the end. Mine's more unfair than embarrassing. Back when I was around 16, we all shared one computer which was in my parents' bedroom. Out of nowhere, my mom comes in my room and yells at me about a P program that's on the desktop. I thought I might have accidentally left something there, but when I went to the computer I realized it was something that required a credit card, which I didn't have at the time. She was yelling at me about it still, even though there was no way it could have came from me. Even when I explained how in order to have had that program downloaded onto the desktop it needed a credit card so it couldn't have been mine, she still said it was my fault. Dad's fapping got me a lecture. Well, this kind of pee is much worse. My dad was a photojournalist, and when times were tough, when I was really young, he took on all and any assignments. We had a huge extra room in our LA apartment that worked like a studio. Well, as I'm sure most of you have guessed, I eventually found out just what kind of assignments he took on. Years later I was rifling through all these storage boxes and I came across a lot of his old photos. Most of it was mundane journalist stuff, but then I came across a set where my dad and my Uncle Joe, he was really just a very close family friend, were taking pics of this nude model. The reason I knew my Uncle Joe was there because it ended up with both of them taking turns fingering her, and I was still young enough that seeing naked crap was a big deal. Also, my dad didn't go around talking about sex or anything, so it was extra shocking. And she was on one of those 70s fake polar bear rugs that just popped into my head. I actually kind of blocked it out until reading this post. Truly wish, even at that time, it was something I could unsee. TLDR. Found pics of my dad and his best friend finger banging some W on a faux animal rug. Every time you see a polar bear, Uncle Joe, I see him giving the camera a thumbs up. Worse than dad pee. A few years ago when I bought a new laptop, I gave my grandpa my old desktop computer. He wasn't very tech savvy, so my boyfriend at the time and myself went to his house to help him get his files off his old computer and onto the one I was giving him. Most of his files were unorganized and weren't named in any particular way that made sense. It led to us clicking on a lot of individual files to see if they were important enough to put onto the newer computer. Well, we clicked some obscurely named picture file and it definitely was not a family photo. It was some skinny girl with massive, covering her stomach, massive boobs with suspenders and a construction hat on. There might have been some kind of construction site in the background of the pic too. Instead of pretending we didn't see it, my ex decides to say, "So do you want to keep this?" My grandpa sees it, gets a little red but just laughs it off. TLDR. My grandpa likes construction. Yeah, I had a bag of goods hidden in a vent in my bedroom for a solid 2 years, sealed in a zip bag to prevent dust from the vents from damaging anything in it. It was a collection including a single magazine, several pieces of images I had printed out, 95% were in black and white. Don't remember my age at the time, but I'm thinking 14ish. Me and my friends had a small trade thing we'd do. We'd find abandoned stuff in some woods near where we lived, we'd find stuff on the internet, go 28k, and occasionally find things from our families. We were pretty good at hiding it, as no one busted us for it. Some of the stuff I'd get a hold of was particularly raunchy, I guess the word is for it. To top it off, my family, read mother, is also pretty racist, and I had a pretty big fetish for light-skinned Asians, Latinos and black women back then. After a fight between my mother and her boyfriend, she decided it was a good time to move. The first thing she does when she decides this is to hand me a dark plastic bag, look me straight in the eye and say to me, "Go back upstairs and get your stash before we start packing." I still don't know how long she knew. I wasn't even sure if she knew exactly what it was I had until she made an off comment about not wanting to see any more Mexicans' dirty N-words doing the business. My dad used to religiously record late-night German TV broadcasts on our satellite TV. This was the late 80s, early 90s, and internet P was pretty much unheard of. It was usually the lamest softcore stuff, but to my 11-year-old self it was like finding Excalibur. There's something slightly unsettling about knowing that you're fapping to the same stuff as your dad, but I was never deterred. Remember, P was a rarity, save for the random magazine pages often found in park bushes. I've lost track of the number of times I would be mid-fap when his car would pull up at outside and it would then be a mad dash involving me pulling up my pants, switching the VHS tapes, changing the channel and assuming a nonchalant pose on the sofa. Somehow, this reminds me of that scene in The Big Lebowski, where the 1P producer invites the dude to his home. At one point, the guy leaves, and the dude is doing the pencil trick to see what he last wrote on a pad of paper. It was a guy with a boner, and when he heard the guy coming back, he ripped the paper out and made a mad dash to pose nonchalantly on the couch. My mom told me about my stepdad's VHS collection, so naturally I went snooping around. I found Bust a Nut in Grandma's Butt and Hairy Chicks Need Love Too. I felt a sense of relief that at least he wasn't into barely legal P. I was his teenage stepdaughter, after all. Later, when my mom found out I had stolen one of the tapes, not Hairy Grandma P, but something innocuous like Amateur Hotties 4, she was like, "You do know that's nearly 15 years old, right? Why don't you just use the internet?" I'm a girl. I discovered my dad's stash of mags when I was about 8. I used them for many years until he died and mom tossed them. In the same drawer where they were kept was an old purse of my mom's, and one day I looked in it by chance. It had a few old Polaroids of a naked man posing for the camera. I was maybe 12 or 13, and most of what I'd seen at that point was sexy naked women, few men. So I snatched the pictures and used them for a while, thinking they wouldn't be missed. Well, about a week later, my mom came and asked me if I had any pictures of hers that I wanted to tell her about. I sheepishly told her yes and returned them. Then she proceeded to lecture me and say that was only natural for girls to be attracted to their father. At first, I didn't understand what she was babbling about, but very slowly it dawned on me. The man was my father. Oh my god, I had no freaking idea. I really never even considered the possibility in the picture so old. TLDR. Accidentally beat off to pics of my dad. Got caught and lectured by my mom. Paging Dr. Freud, you're needed in this thread. When I was a kid, my friend found a stash of his dad's pee in the garage and invited a few of us around for a viewing. All was going fine until he popped in the third video. It featured an ugly lady with a very hairy vag spread eagled on a bed. Then my friend's father appeared on screen, naked and sporting a handsome boner. I can't stop laughing at the term handsome boner. 2002. I'm 19. I'm home on break from school and my GF at the time is with me. She'd just turned 18. And for her 18th birthday she wanted to go to VIP, very intimate pleasures, which was this new swanky pea store that had opened recently. Having the relationship that I do with my dad, I tell him what we're doing. As I walk out the door, he says to me, "Hey, can you pick me up some anime pea? I'm curious." A few days later, I got his review of it. It was really graphic. He was right. I love my dad. Upvote for your relationship with your dad. 35/M. Throwaway account. Here, I always knew my dad hid P Betamax tapes and a few VHS. One day I found P on the unlocked safe. Some of it was good, but it didn't get shocking until I started searching for P on his PC. He had a hidden P folder in there. There were lots of pictures of mature women wearing stockings. Not shocking and not my taste. Still, under that there was another folder. I sneaked, and to my horror, I found the same pictures photoshopped with the faces of my mom's sisters. To this day I haven't told him that, I know, but every time I see him buy a Photoshop out a book, I shudder. Dad walks into my room. "Son, we need to talk. Follow me." We walk over to the family computer, which I had routinely used to look at P, and my dad shows me the history. I see a long list of P sites, nasterwives.com being one of the names he pointed out, which is different than it was 10 years ago, and he asks me what this is doing there. I have learned, over the years, to always deny everything. If you're caught, you're caught. But, if there is a seed of doubt, try to milk it for what it's worth. I was quiet for a little while, then told him I wasn't sure. My dad then continued, saying, "When your friends come over and use the computer, make sure you supervise them so they don't start doing anything that could get you in trouble." Lucky me, my baseball team had come over for a team dinner the day before and had used the computer when I wasn't around. They definitely didn't look at P since their parents were there too. But my dad saw them on it and that was enough to prove I hadn't done it. Still the most awkward moment I've ever had, followed by the most relieving. I learned how to delete my history after that. He knew, but he gave you an out and made sure you knew to cover your tracks. I was lucky enough to masturbate on dial-up, though it's left me getting slightly aroused if I hear the old connecting sounds. Pavlov's frisky 14-year-old. I remember sitting with my best friends at night while their parents were sleeping hearing the dong dong. KSSSSHHHH ping ping KSSSSSSSSSHHHHH and being like, "Please don't wake up. Please don't wake up." My father was a professional cartoonist. His work is prolific. I have stacks upon stacks of his work sitting in my room. His apartment was cluttered with clipboards and boxes full of loose sketches. You would never know what you'd find every time you started looking through his stuff. One weekend, while he was at work, my siblings and I were feeling particularly nosy. At the time, my father spent quite a bit of time on the computer, mid to late 90s, chatting with folks in ICQ. Poking around the desk, we found a stack of uninked cartoons in the bottom drawer, under a stack of files. The pictures we found were as follows. 1. A caricature of my father in children's pajamas and his butt hanging out. They were the old school kind of PJs, with fieties, and a buttoned butt flap. He was looking coquettishly over his shoulder while the butt flap fell down, exposing a bare, shining butt. His caricature was strikingly realistic. Beard, grey eyebrows, wrinkles and all. 2. This is where it got weirder. The cartoon was of a computer, sitting on a desk, with a hand reaching out from within the screen. There was a woman standing before the desk with her blouse open, and her breasts bared, ready for the hand to grab. Being about 10 at the time, boobs were a pretty foreign thing to me still, and it was even weirder seeing them drawn in my dad's style. 3. This one. I honestly wouldn't doubt if people don't believe me on this one, but bear with me. I swear on my life it's real, and I wouldn't be admitting this sort of thing if it wasn't. It was on some serious Rule 34 crap before Rule 34 technically was given a name. It was another cartoon, a room full of Muppets, performing Buck on Miss Piggy, in big, bubble letters. She was screaming, "Oh Kermit." Fricked up part? Kermit wasn't in the picture. From what I remember there was Beaker, Bunsen Honeydew, Gonzo, and Rolf. There must have been more. It was a pretty crowded picture and my brother, being a bit overprotective, hid it and almost threatened to rip it up. For the record, my father was the best dad I could ever ask for. Turns out he just happened to be a bit of a closeted furry. TLDR, my dad drew Muppet P. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.